Wait, sorry, I was just restarting my thingy. Sorry, yeah, what was your question that you said?
So I just want to be clear on your answer. If the mother, just stipulate now the mother wants to sustain pregnancy, but she doesn't find the fetus morally valuable because it's not conscious, so she drinks at 8 weeks. Do you think that's morally wrong?
Is she going to carry it to term, yes or no?
Yes, she's going to carry it to term.
Then yes, I would, yeah.
Okay, and why?
Because you're harming a future person.
Okay, that's my case for abortion. So I'm being anti-abortion.
I said that I don't necessarily place value on someone just basically living. I don't think it's an inherently bad thing.
I don't either.
To deprive someone of living. But you just said that you say it's a bad
You
thing.
say you're going to harm a future person. I mean, what's your account of harm such that killing it won't harm it of a future? Won't harm a future person.
Again, I don't count as a person until it reaches that 24 to 28.
I said future person.
You said it's what?
I said person.
Okay, well, you're kind of like playing semantics. If you're defining it as a person, that's kind of defeating the point.
No, I'm not. I'm saying I think you misheard me. So I'll repeat what I'm saying so we're clear. You think that it'd be wrong in this case to drink because you're harming a future person. That's my exact case for being anti-abortion. You're harming a future person if you deprive them of their experiences that they would have had you not got an abortion. Yeah,
and I'm saying I don't necessarily value or experience or think that everyone ought to, just because they've, been, formed from conception, ought to live a life or that they should have to be carried to life. I don't think all life is inherently, valuable. I think that's up to the mother's choice to decide whether she wants to carry the child to term and thinks it's worth it, or that, it'll be a life that she'd want to bring into the world rather than not. That's basically my point.
Yeah, I don't know if this is satisfactory to me.
The disagreement is that you think that, life is inherently valuable, that all life...
I don't.
Is that not what you think? You said that all life should be, carried to term. I'm saying that I don't necessarily find it that she should, carry the life to term. That's our point of disagreement.
That's not my view. My view is in most cases, that's very clear, because there's cases obviously that won't fall under this. Abortion is generally harmful because you're depriving a future person of their experiences. And you're saying you're giving similar reason as to why drinking alcohol at 8 weeks would be wrong. The same reasoning I'm giving.
Yeah, but again, that's what I'm saying. You value all experience. You value all life, as in that should happen. You think all life should happen.
It's not an entailment of my view.
That's what you just said. You're depriving them of future experiences.
Say abortion is wrong because you're harming a future person generally. Okay, and you're saying generally
you're not harming a future person if they aren't a person yet.
Okay, so under that reasoning applies to your view. Then you can't say that drinking at 8 weeks is morally wrong.
If you get an abortion before my 24 to 28 mark, which is when they become a person, if you get an abortion then, you're unaliving something, but that's not a person. That doesn't hold any moral value, so I don't see it's an issue. But when I say you drinking, intoxicants that can harm that future person, that's on the basis that you're carrying them past the 24 to 28 mark, when they will then be affected, and you don't plan on having an abortion before that area. Then you're actually affecting a person who will live. That's my point.
I don't understand that was a response. I genuinely don't. Because you're just describing the two situations to me that I'm well aware of.
Yeah, and that's and again, I'm not understanding where we're agreeing. You're saying you're depriving them of future experiences, which is basically life, which is what you're saying. I'm saying I don't inherently think that they ought to live life. The mother, whether she thinks it's a valuable life that should be carried to term.
Just give me your reasoning one more time so I'm clear. Why is it wrong for the mother to drink at 8 weeks if she's going to carry out the pregnancy? The reasoning is what?
Because she's harming a future person.
Okay. And what's the symmetry breaker between that and getting an abortion? You're harming a future person when you get an abortion.
No, because again, you as I just said, that you think that it's a bad thing to deprive someone of future life experiences. I don't necessarily.
It's bad to harm future people. That's my claim.
Yeah, you're depriving someone of future experience. I don't think that's an inherently bad thing, especially if it's before the 24-20 mark, because I don't view them as a person who has that value. Whereas you're that's what you're saying, and whereas I'm saying I don't think that that's the case. You're saying that it is the case. That's where we fundamentally disagree. I don't think that there's an issue with depriving someone of future experience. You think there is an issue with depriving someone of any sort of future experience, and I brought up the analogy to say that not all life is inherently preferable to non-life, and I think that should be the decision of the mother. 28-week mark.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, because I think most of the chat is agreeing with me, not to appeal to that, but I think they understand the point.
I could bring you've kind of pressed on my point. Oh, Divine Order say it. He agrees with you, but do you know who Divine Order is?
he agrees with you. He's a pro-life.
Have you heard of like Divine Order, the debate?
Yeah, I know who that is.
Okay, well, anyways, the point is you've kind of been pressing on my view. If I bring up some things about your view, I imagine you become pro-choice pretty quickly.
You would be thinking incorrectly, but if you want to press me on my view and you are tired of explaining your view, we could do that.
You sure? Okay, all right. So when do you believe that life deserves the rights to live or personhood, essentially?
Well, my argument is future like ours, so there's a lot of stuff there. But I'm saying generally abortion's harmful because you're depriving the fetus of future experiences they would have had you not gotten that abortion.
Okay, but when do you think like the personhood begins? Is that a conception, 6 weeks, 10 weeks? What do you think?
What do you mean by personhood?
As in like the rights to not be unalived. So like we all currently, or wherever you are, most likely in your country, have the right to not be unalived, protected by, the government,
this would apply at conception.
Okay, conception. Okay, so basically anything after that is first degree murder and you should go to prison for 25 years to life, or in some states, the penalty of unalivement for getting an abortion.
I don't have a strict legal view. I'm not really sure about how legislation should be.
Okay, but it would be murder, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, morally equivalent to that.
Okay, so basically all women who get abortions would be murderers?
I think in most cases they are.
I mean, technically it would be all cases if you're getting an abortion because you plan it out like I'm going to, unalive this, person, this human being, and I'm going to unalive them. So you'd be saying it's murderers. But would that be in the case?
Under my argument, that's not true because under my argument, I wouldn't be able to account for every single abortion. So there are some that would be permissible under that account.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're probably talking about rape and life of the mother. You'd agree with abortion in those scenarios?
I'm talking about life of the mother, but also if you were to give me some crazy hypothetical in which the fetus didn't have a future like mine or future valuable experiences, I might say it's permissible.
Future valuable experiences? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the argument's saying that obviously it's not just depriving the fetus of any experience. Like if they're going to have 2 seconds outside of the womb, that's not a future similar to mine. So obviously there's some vague cases that we can go through, but generally I'm trying to say a future that would consist of experiences, memories, friendships, hopes, desires, things that we value.
Okay, so where do you like draw that line? Where do you like make that parallel and that this person, this fetus, I mean, there's no way you could even predict that, number one, because no one can predict the future life of a person. So you'd effectively be gambling on what you could predict on. I think this person will live a good life and this person won't, is what you're saying?
I think it's not probable to live. It's not probable for the fetus to have a life where I'd say they don't have a future like mine, like the extreme torture case that we went through, being tortured for 80 years or something. If that were the case, it would be permissible, but that's generally not the case.
Okay, so I guess you are kind of pro-choice in a way, depending on, how good you think the life will be. So you kind of are in like agreement.
Don't think that's pro-choice. I'm like, most abortions are wrong. So I don't know if that's pro-choice.
Okay, but who would make that decision, do you think, on whether, to get an abortion if the life of the future person wouldn't be very good? Who would make that decision?
Obviously, we don't have access to that, but it's just not probabilistically the case.
Okay, but if you knew, let's say, that they would live a terrible life and that it would fall under your category of this person shouldn't live, who would make that decision?
Who would make that decision? I thought your question would follow and say, would it be wrong to kill them? But I don't know. I don't know what you mean by who would make that decision.
As in, like, would the mother be like, okay, I don't think that this fetus will live a very good life. Let me unalive the fetus.
That's like you're asking some epistemic questions. I'm just more concerned with if we had that knowledge and the mother got an abortion, Flo would not explain why that's wrong. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. I think I understand where you're coming from. I was just like, I was just trying to like a bit misconstrued on your view. However, okay, but let me just restate what I was saying. So you think life of the mother, and what about rape? You think that in that case,
I don't get that exception.
That would be an exception?
No, I don't.
You don't. So if a woman unfortunately gets raped, she would be forced to carry that baby to term.
Yes.
Even no matter the age, because we do know that there was one recorded case in which a 5-year-old was pregnant and had to carry unfortunately had to carry a baby to term. But yeah, that was a case in which a 5-year-old was pregnant. You would say that she would have to carry that baby to term.
Yeah, I mean, that might have a ton of medical issues, but obviously I'm just saying if you are
Yeah,
capable
okay,
of
but
it.
let me say that she can healthily carry it because we know obviously we can get periods, quite young, and so essentially, let's say from 12 years old and up, if any of them unfortunately terribly
Correct.
get raped, they'd have to carry the baby to term.
Yeah, they would be obligated to sustain 9 months of pregnancy to not unalive another person, and then they can transfer that obligation if they like.
Okay, I mean, wow, but okay, wow.
You said, mind you, keep in mind, same dude saying wow is the same is the dude who said if you have an infant that's in a coma, you can use it as a sex doll. Okay.
No, I mean it's the same thing.
That's
Divine.
a bit crazy to me.
It's such a like stretch, but sure. Like in my case, that's actual scenarios, but in that other case, it's just such a you have to go that far to try and like. But you know what? It is what it is. But I still think that's like, come on now, like, really. Anyways, okay, that's interesting. But I have another point. You know what IUDs are?
Yeah.
Do you know how IUDs work?
Yeah, I have other reasons for kind of being against that. Flo's obviously not going to explain it, just to be clear.
What do you mean by flow?
Oh, sorry. I keep abbreviating because that's how future like ours. The argument that I'm using to be anti-abortion
Oh, okay.
is not gonna it's not gonna cover that. I have other reasons.
Okay, so you fine with IUDs or not?
For other reasons, no. But I mean, yeah,
Okay,
now
but,
sure.
but technically, you probably haven't known this, but actually, IUDs would actually be essentially. Let me 1 second. Yeah, IUDs would actually be technically murder under your view because IUDs, once the zygote has formed, conception has happened. IUDs essentially can, like kind of, which means the maintaining of the uterus cannot form. So essentially, you're kind of like starving the zygote from being able to implant and actually grow. So essentially, it will be unaliving a human being and murder. Essentially.
Yeah, I mean, my actual view is to say that I am against that. But the argument that I'm using, I have a friend named Julian that says it's permissible because there's certain views you can take on when it is probabilistic that the zygote will continue to survive. I'll just say it's wrong.
Gamble. But that means it would be a gamble. For example, if I, shoot behind a door and there was like a 50% chance someone is there, it would still be smurred if I unalive someone. So I know it's not 100%, but that's like gambling with unaliving someone. It'd still be, I guess.
I have reasons for saying it's wrong outside of the argument. Yeah, I think it's wrong regardless.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, obviously, I'm talking in the context of like, your view of life starting at conception or valuable life starting at conception. So fair enough. So you'd find it to be wrong. Women who get IUDs would technically, that would be wrong. And Shmurda is basically you're agreeing with me?
I think it would be wrong. I'll say that. I'm not committing myself to saying it's murder, but.
Okay, all right. I mean, okay, we'll let you say it would be wrong, but under your view, we both know that I would technically be actually smarter. But it is what it is. Okay, it's just a point. But yeah, I also had other questions, of course. Obviously, my point is consciousness, and so. Wait, do you have any other point of contention with me on that? Because I was just like, because I know we were going somewhere, but I guess we kind of moved. But I don't know if you had any.
There's like a ton of views. Like, when you say that, so I wasn't super clear on what you were trying to say. I think you were just saying it's morally wrong, but no, we can just continue. You can continue talking. Sorry.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That's interesting. I mean, I guess I don't have any other actual like points, but it's like, I mean, I think it's kind of wild, thinking that any woman who gets an abortion is a murderer. I think that's a little.
It's not any woman. I've said that many times.
Oh yeah, sorry, future life like ours. Is that future like ours?
Yeah, the argument. I didn't do a good job explaining it because the conversation's moving fast. But
yeah,
the argument is an argument in the philosophy of death. So it's trying to give an account for why death is generally harmful. And so you start off by asking the question of why, if I were to come and unalive you, that would be harmful to you. And a good explanation, at least, good justification not for me to not do that is that if I do that action, I'll deprive you of your entire future. And obviously your future consists of things that you value, like continuing to experience the life that you live. And so if you apply that property to the fetus, then it follows that that'd be wrong to do that to the fetus.
So you said it's wrong to do that to us because you'd essentially be, depriving us of a future life that we value.
Yeah, I think, yeah, because me and you, I don't think disagree there. It's just you're stipulating this extra condition that you've had to have an established experience prior. But I think that's just ad hoc reasoning. I don't think it gives any explanatory advantage over my view.
I think it technically does. For example, let's say you have a brain dead patient. Would you pull the plug on the brain dead patient if there was a no chance of them ever waking up again?
Yes, but our views both account for that. They don't have future experiences.
Okay, but yeah, I bring up past, present, and future because it kind of, um, it's kind of works with like people, for example, who are unconscious, which is why I brought that up. In that case, it'll be wrong because, of course, they have past, present, and future. But in your case, you only value future, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but I'm saying, so look at what my case explains. I mean, you brought up the brain dead patient. Both of our theories explain why you're able to pull the plug. So we agree there. Both of our theories explain why it's wrong to unalive just someone like you or I, where we've had established experiences and we'll have some in the future. I'm just saying that established experiences don't hold any explanatory advantage over my theory. Like you're just adding that in, I think, to exclude the fetus.
Okay, but I think you did see a point in that, if they won't have a life worth living, then it's okay to have an abortion, is what you're saying.
Not just, well, we have to get clear on what a life worth living, because that's vague,
Exactly,
but
that's kind of vague. So that's kind of clar-
just
like,
to simplify it, just the type of entity that will have future experiences. They'll be sentient in the future, conscious in the future. Those types of experiences are valuable.
so the fact that they'll be sentient in the future is what you're saying.
Yeah, we can continue under that. That's fine.
Okay, yeah, so they'll be sentient in the future. Okay, so yeah, that's why I brought the example. So let me just clarify. That means that even if they would have a terrible life, and which is why I brought my analogy, you'd still say that they ought to have future experiences.
Yes.
But I thought your point was that if they were going to have terrible experiences or their life was not going to go well, then you should be able to have an abortion because it's not worth having, if they're going to have bad experiences, then you should be able to get an abortion.
I think we're talking about terrible experiences differently. Like, I think what I mean is a lot more extreme than what you mean. I don't mean like growing up in poverty or growing up in a household with neglect or something. Like, I'm talking about if you gave me some hypothetical where this person for like 80 years would be brutally raped and like tortured and stuff. That's probably not a life worth living.
Okay, and so yeah, I think this is where I was going with that. So essentially, obviously, there's got to be some sort of, I guess, spectrum from a really amazing life to what you just described there. As in, at some point, that means you're saying that at this point, it's okay to have an abortion because that life I'm deeming not worth, living, and it's that terrible. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, the argument saying if you don't have, okay, look, actually, I kind of redefined it to help the conversation because I think you and I I said a future state of sentience, which I said like a minute ago. So if we work under that definition to help us, that's easier.
Yeah, I know, but obviously,
So under that definition, like if somebody is born without a brain, they're never gonna have experience for the rest of their life. Flo would not explain why getting an abortion is wrong because they don't have a future like mine. They don't have future experiences.
Okay, I see. So I guess, our point of contention was, in fact, of course, I value past, present, as well as future, and you're valuing that the fact that they will, have a future experience.
Right.
But that means you are valuing sentience, right?
Future sentience. Yeah, I value sentience.
But they technically don't have that sentience at that moment. For example, at, 2 weeks, they wouldn't technically have that sentience.
I definitely know that. My argument is that depriving them of the property that I value is extremely harmful.
So
Because what's interesting about your view?
So do you value sentience or the fact that but you said the rights to life start at conception, but now you're that they will have a future experience. So like,
Yeah, those are compatible. Like you can value the property